Hey there and welcome back to Mutant Year Zero. My name is Pete and today we complete episode 11 of our Iron Mutant playthrough, and with that the second half of the short and entirely optional adventure that we began in the last video. In that one, we once again traveled up north to discover a more or less abandoned underground bunker, we cleared out the ghouls who had already slaughtered most of the previous residents, and we talked to the only survivor, the ghouls' prisoner Ebba the cook. And he told us of a secret ghoul camp and a leader named Grey One, so that is where we are heading today and who we are looking to take out. In order to do that, we have arrived at the Lair of the Horned Devil, and today, for the first time in this series, we will see a lineup consisting of both Pharaoh and Dux. Both of them will need moth wings for this one, and Dux will also need the Grenadier's Delight hat, as well as a frag grenade to go with it. We also want to make sure that he has Circuit Breaker equipped and then switch Magnus back from Chain Lightning to Puppeteer, and Silent Assassin can of course also return. And with that we are ready to go, so let's start exploring.
Man, this thing really is all battered up. What could have broken it like that? Whatever it is, it left plenty of scrap for us.
And there is plenty of scrap indeed on this small western side of the path that we will eventually take, but scrap is actually not the only thing that we'll find here. As a matter of fact, we are only seconds away from unlocking our first achievement of the episode. And there it is, with the acquisition of Hidden Magazine number 5 we unlock the Bushwhacker achievement, an achievement that was actually added as part of the patch that the game received for the Seed of Evil DLC, however it is technically still part of the base game, and as far as I know you don't actually need to have the DLC installed to unlock it.
Ebba said the ghouls that murdered his settlement came here. The lair of the Horned Devil.
Okay. So this sign clearly indicates there's a devil with horns in there, plus a bunch of ghouls who butcher settlements for fun. Who wants to turn around? Let's vote.
Forget the Horned Devil. We can't let these ghouls slaughter another settlement. Let's get in there.
Alright, so now we know how this area got its name, as we have stumbled upon Camp Moose. And this note tells us of extreme survival weekends that were apparently held here, although the description is interesting to say the least. Among other things, it mentions a certain reality TV star named Grilled Bear. Unfortunately though, there isn't much left of the rest of the camp, and coincidentally the same goes for the ghoul over here.
A dead ghoul. One fight I missed. Never seen one of these machines this... not dirty and broken apart. Kinda crashed that long ago. That star shows clearly.
And indeed, the robot seems to be in pretty good condition, luckily though not good enough to be a threat to us.
I'm brave, but this is insane. We need to back down.
And it looks like we have stumbled upon the entrance to the enemy camp, which is currently protected by a tank and a pyro. And Pharaoh is absolutely right, we do not want to mess with these two, at least not yet, so let's look for another way in.
Spot anything? Nothing. No one comes. No one dares come here and challenge us. Yeah, we strong. We got metal giants.
And as we learn that the ghouls are apparently in possession of a robot, we launch our first ambush of the episode. This time we are attacking a marauder and a shaman simultaneously, and we are starting things off with 2 gunslinger criticals from Pharaoh.
I am, you don't know who you won't get some!
Following that, we can use Puppeteer on the Marauder for mind control number 9 of the playthrough, and then we can actually use that Marauder to attack the Shaman, although with a Stinger pistol the damage output is less than impressive.
We're a long way from the Archbeast, boy! Dead!
Now at this point we will follow things up with a grenade to kill them both, because after just attacking a friend, the Marauder will actually break out of his mind control on the next turn, which is unfortunately never mentioned anywhere, but would of course likely lead to us taking some damage. Killing it with a grenade does count as friendly fire by the way, so it does not count towards the cooldown of our mutations. Speaking of mutations, we can now actually grab the Chameleon ability, and with that the final mutation that is available to Dux. This ability allows ducks to become invisible, and with that come the usual sneak attack bonuses, and I don't think I have to mention that this can be very useful in the right situations. We also still have 4 points left, so let's grab 2 more stat upgrades. The first one will improve his health, the second one his movement range. In my opinion, we don't necessarily need either one of them, but, well, we have the points, we might as well spend them. And that brings us to Magnus, whose mutation skill tree we can also complete now. With 15 points, we have just enough to grab Dodge Dash and Skull Splitter. Dodge Dash is pretty much lightning reflexes from XCOM, as it allows Magnus to move without triggering reaction shots from Overwatch. Skull Splitter, meanwhile, is already familiar from Ducks, and it finally gives Magnus a way to reliably land critical hits as well. The fight that we just finished, by the way, was also the reason why we equipped that Grenadier hat on Ducks. Even with the damage upgrade that we acquired from Prips a while back, we would only be able to do 8 points of damage with a grenade, which would not have been enough against the Shaman who still had 9 hit points left. And if you're wondering, yes, we will of course come back to that loot at the car in just a moment. For now though, we can investigate a small wooden house that is built on the water here. However, it doesn't hold much aside from a few weapon parts and scrap. So let's go back the way we came to find another weapon chest.
Yeah, prize time.
Somewhat disappointingly though, it is only another Rambino. We have already dismantled 2 of them, and this one will likely suffer the same fate. That brings us to the note over here, which appears to be a manual for one of those Z600 robots. Those are the big ones, not the small flying ones. And the note here talks about friendly fire and issues with ally recognition systems. And let's keep that in mind, perhaps we can use it to our advantage. Now moving on, we follow the pathway here across another small bridge, and with that we have actually found a back door into the enemy camp.
Stay cool. We need to take them 1 or 2 at a time.
The first enemy is also quickly spotted, and it is only another marauder, but since Puppeteer is still on cooldown, we have to do things the old-fashioned way, although with Pharaoh and Ducks in the squad, we can simply land 2 criticals.
Follow me.
Now, what Ducks said earlier about taking the enemies in this camp 1 or 2 at a time is definitely good advice. I think it's pretty obvious that the Marauder is far from the biggest threat in the area, and once we alert one enemy of our presence, the rest will quickly follow. And that makes clearing out this camp without taking damage a pretty hefty challenge, in which enemy order, squad composition and abilities definitely matter a lot. On top of that, we also have to keep track of our achievements, which is why we will not engage the Marauder over here just yet, and instead carefully sneak past.
You said the generator would bring this giant to life. Did you lie to me?
No lie, Grey One. Only truth, big truth. Just need a little more time.
You sound like you want to die. Do you want to die?
No, you the chief, Grey One. You the hot tamale. I will get this middleman working again. It will kill more and more settlements all the way to the Ark.
Okay, so it looks like we have found Grey One, and it also looks like the ghouls do have a robot, but it's not working at the moment, which is certainly a bit of a relief. Now, our first victim is the hunter, who just said that he doesn't want to die, but unfortunately we cannot grant him that wish, and so, outside of the detection radius of anyone else, we quickly have to take him down.
That's right.
Pulling off the timing for this one can be a bit tricky, as the Marauder is in the process of getting closer as well. So we want to ambush as soon as the hunter is near the entrance, also because he would detect us if he actually went inside the building. At that point he would just be a little too close to our squad, and even hiding in cover only gets us so far. With the hunter eliminated, however, we have just recorded the last remaining kill to have Puppeteer usable again, which means we can now also grab the 10th successful mind control of the playthrough, and in doing so unlock the Power of Flesh achievement. This also means that we will very likely never use Puppeteer again in this series. After all, it is only guaranteed to work on the weak Marauders and Butchers, and it's almost always easier just to straight up kill them.
I am the beautiful weapon. Pablo!
Yeah!
That had to hurt.
Move out.
And now that this enemy bites the dust, we can also finally loot the chest inside of the house here.
Come on. Let me see what's inside.
And what we find is the Borg band for a 4-tile movement range increase. This could actually work rather nicely on Bormin because of his hog rush ability, but at least for the moment we do not need to equip it on anyone. Instead, we can sneak back out and now focus on the 2 remaining hunters who are patrolling near the campfire, and who are only for a few seconds positioned in such a way that one does not notice the other one getting killed. And that is also only true if we take out the one in the back first, so the one closest to us, because their companion currently has their back turned and will therefore not notice anything going on behind them.
I'm the hero, you're the zero. What do you think about that?
If we instead attack the other hunter in the exact same position, then the other one would have a clear line of sight and they would immediately alert the rest of the enemy camp. These hunters, by the way, are also part of the reason why we have both Pharaoh and Ducks in our squad today, because we are only able to take out these enemies silently if we can reliably get 2 critical hits. And both Ducks and Pharaoh are the only ones who have that power, partially because of their abilities and also in part because of their equipment. In any case, we have now moved on to hunter number 2, however, the really tricky part of the mission, that is still coming up. Now, admittedly, it already took me quite some time to figure out that you can take out these 2 hunters one after the other, but keep in mind that we also still have a pyro and a tank guarding the camp entrance, and of course Grey One is also still running around.
Come get some! Now it's getting fun.
And because of that, camp leader Grey One, we are now making one final change to our squad, as we replace Magnus with Bormin. Very importantly, we also want to remove the pyro armor from Magnus for this one, because we need Bormin to be fireproof. Mutation-wise, Hog Rush and Twitch Shot are the important abilities for him, and since we won't be using any more grenades to finish this mission, we can also put the Fertility Crown back on Ducks and increase his critical hit chance.
Come on!
Finally then, just as a precaution, we want Circuit Breaker on Pharaoh. We already have it on Ducks and that should be enough, but in this case, better safe than sorry very much applies. As we continue to sneak around and loot a few bits and pieces around the campsite, we can now slowly but steadily make our way towards the pyro, who, as you can see, unfortunately has the high ground. The tank, meanwhile, stands a little ways off and also has their back turned, so if we can take out the pyro silently, then the tank won't notice. Problem is, if we stay on the ground, then all of our shots will receive a minus 25% aim penalty because of the high ground, so let us counter that high ground with some high ground of our own, which we can achieve by using moth wings and flying up as high as we can. Since we are staying hidden in the process, we can also use this to obtain the 2 necessary critical hits, which leaves the pyro a more or less easy kill for Bormin.
That's gotta hurt!
I say more or less because Bormin of course can't fly, so he has to get close, and that is where the pyro armor comes into play.
Stay down!
Yes, as we learned last episode, standing too close to a pyro when they die can cause problems, but thanks to the armor, Bormin absorbs all the damage from the Molotov, and we are now down to only 2 enemies, the tank and Grey One. And we will actually let the tank be for the moment, and instead head over to that big barn where Grey One is hanging out. However, we do not want to go in through the front gates, and instead loop around. Not only will this allow us to collect some loot that is hidden behind the barn, but there are also ladders on both sides, and we want to use the one on this side to sneakily stealth our way inside and discover something interesting.
The ghouls got themselves a machine of their own. Thank the Elder it's out of power.
And indeed, we have just found the Ghouls Z600, and with the knowledge that we obtained from that manual earlier, we can now do a few modifications. Now, this unlocks another achievement, although at this point it is not quite clear what reprogramming actually does. The only thing that we can assume is that it gives us some sort of advantage.
Come on, let it be something good.
Right next to the robot, we then find a chest and inside a suit of ghoul armor. Although without any special abilities, it is not that useful, I think. And if we are only looking for maximum protection, then there are also better armors in the game. Now, as we move Dux and Pharaoh one level higher, let me just quickly mention that reading through the robot manual earlier was not actually necessary to reprogram it. That note was likely more meant as a hint that something can be done with this robot, although again, at this point we do not quite know what exactly. With our 2 crit machines well hidden, we then want to move Bormin back down to the ground, and here we want to sit and wait until Grey One enters the barn. With 38 hit points and 4 points of armor, Grey One is certainly not going to be an easy task, but, well, we captured the high ground and brought Bormin both for a reason. As soon as the chief then stops in front of the robot, we want to launch our ambush, and this is the point where this mission gets really interesting. Now, to begin, we can get a guaranteed critical hit with Pharaoh here for 14 points of damage.
I am the beautiful weapon. Hello.
And following that, we can add another 15 with Dux, although of course both attacks have to get through Grey One's armor first.
That had to hurt.
Now, at this point, we are switching over to Bormin and activate Hog Rush, because despite the heavy armor, the chief can still be knocked down. Unfortunately though, Bormin is just out of range to do that with a normal move, so he has to dash and can't shoot on this turn. Now, with Grey One incapacitated, nothing else happens on the enemy turn, and our next move once again keeps Bormin from attacking, as we are now using a full dash with him to also get him up onto the high ground. It is actually very important that we do not kill Grey One on this turn, and thankfully the stun from Hog Rush lasts for 2 turns, so we have a bit of room to operate here. But that is why after another critical hit from Pharaoh, we are simply reloading Dux and then end the turn, because we want to have as many moves left as possible once Grey One goes down. And so another enemy turn passes by, and that means it is now time for that killing blow. Let's reload first though, and then we can unlock yet another achievement.
I'm the hero, you're the zero.
Target data ICF is corrupted. Factory settings restored. All humanoids must be eliminated.
Okay, so it looks like the Ghouls Z600 has activated, which normally happens much earlier, as soon as Grey One's turn starts.
Yeah.
However, because of Hog Rush, Grey One was never able to give the command, and so this is like the game's workaround to still include the robot in this fight. Now, thanks to Dux's circuit breaker, we are fine here for the moment, but the activation of the robot has also drawn the tank's attention, who now uses their entire turn to dash over to us, and who has also just become our primary target.
What do you think about that?
A critical hit from Pharaoh is therefore a very good start to this fight, although we are not relying on it. What we are relying on, however, is Bormin's Twitch Shot ability, which should do enough damage to pave the way for a kill for Dux.
Enough.
Or it just deals another critical hit and the tank already goes down, so that shot now goes against the robot instead and also ends our turn.
Yeah, I did that. What do you think about that, huh?
But again, being stunned, our enemy can't do much, and so we can now go for the kill against an enemy who, at least in theory, could have made this fight pretty interesting.
It's Pharaoh.
And there we are, the robot is dead, no achievement for this one, but we'll talk a bit more about it in just a second.
On me.
All this talk about the Horned Devil and we never saw him, except for that sign. What a pussy. Show yourself, devil.
My friend Dilla talked about the legend of the Horned Devil. He said the Horned Devil lived centuries ago. Rode on a giant zone bear, he said.
Well, a fascinating story, almost as fascinating as this device over here, which the ghouls use to power the robots and which actually gives us 4 artifact points. For achievement purposes, it does only count as 1 artifact, but I think it made the once again entirely optional journey up here worth it.
Oh, a power box that actually gives off power. I bet one of those art people you live with can find a good use for this.
And that he most certainly can, so let us now return to the Ark, and as we do, let's talk a bit more about that Z600. Now, I already told you that normally the robot will activate as soon as Grey One starts their turn. One more thing that normally happens is that the robot is programmed to only attack us. So, without Hog Rush, the fight against Grey One would have turned into a pretty nasty affair. However, as you saw, we did reprogram the robot. Now, it didn't attack anyone, so the effects of that were a little hard to notice, but what reprogramming actually does is remove the robot's friend or foe detection system, and so, after it has been reprogrammed and activated by Grey One, it will attack anything on the map. That of course still includes us, but also the ghouls, and it can be used to more or less let the enemies fight things out among themselves. I will admit though that this is not the most reliable way of finishing the mission. Especially the ghouls oftentimes still seem to have a very strong tendency to completely ignore the robot and still go after us, and even if the Z600 completely zones in on Grey One, then it will still take a while to chop through all those hit points and armor. So that is why we ultimately went for a slightly different approach. Although it would have been funny to see the chaos unfold, I think you understand though that it would have also put the entire premise of taking no damage at risk, and at the end of the day that is still one of the primary goals of this playthrough. So, now that we have all of that out of the way, I think it is time to wrap up for today. In the next video, we will then finally make some progress towards Eden, which actually isn't too far away anymore, so the end of the series is getting closer. We have maybe 3 or 4 more episodes. That of course does not include the Seed of Evil DLC, which we might play afterwards, but that is a conversation for another time. For today, let's make the cut. So, as always, I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, then I would be very happy if you could leave a thumbs up. And if you like what I'm doing and want to support me and my channel further, then you can of course do that as well, for example by subscribing to stay up to date, by grabbing some merch over on shop.petecomplete.com, or by checking out and maybe even pledging to the Pete Complete Patreon. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.